right. I'm still running a super old version of 4coder. Before we actually get started with 4coder Friday, I am going to switch over to the latest version. For the last few days, I've used 4coder at work without any problems. No crashes, no lagging. It's the only big problem I've noticed is the darn renderer flickering is even more visible when there's a lot of highlights on screen. So sometimes I turn off the scope highlighting just because that creates such a large flicker whenever it flickers and it's distracting. But besides that, everything's looking good. So, since it's working pretty well at this point, I am going to update to it, as that will reduce crashes on stream, hopefully. Okay, this is the good one. Now let me just double check one thing. There was a memory leak in 4coder until about Tuesday when I fixed it. And I just want to observe real quick as I use this thing I just built. Yeah, okay, so this does not have the leak. It is staying stable now. Good, good, good. It used to just leak a little bit every frame because the render caller was putting those markers on the buffer and then clearing the scope, and the way I was clearing the scope I was leaking a tiny little bit of the stuff that was allocated every time that was totally not needing to get leaked. So now we're all set. I want to pull in my to-do list from, oops, only trouble is I need to go back to here. Now I want to pull in my, oh, now I'm going to have the font size too small. I want to pull in my to-do list for my email. I've organized most of what I think I need to get done, absolutely need to get done before ship day. In terms of little problems that have been created, mostly created by the new features. Not like bugs that are outstanding. Those are bugs that are outstanding that I haven't fixed are not getting fixed. That's not the part of the plan. Okay. Okay, so Notepad Mode. Select scope range. Snapback shouldn't happen. Highlight high priority versus block low priority should win. new files don't get their automatically inserted comments anymore. When moving the cursor in a non-active, this is another Notepad-like mode, there is no snapback. Notepad-like mode can't tell which view is active. Only highlight line in active view. Pasting long comment at top of code files doesn't always parse right away. Okay. So there's the things I want to fix in terms of bugs. Then we'll get back to this documentation to-do list. Once these lists are both done, 4coder can ship. Now I just want to make sure yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm not sure how, but I lost the comment, the documentation comments I wrote for a few of these last things. I didn't save the changes or something, or they got lost in Git. But one way or the other, those need to get redone. Okay. So bugs. Let's start with buffer or before dot, and the name matches doesn't work. So where that comes up is under UI helper, I believe. Yeah. So I want to find a good example of this first. Like if I type 4ed in the 4coder project, 4ed.cpp and 4ed.h should be jumping to the top, but they're not. Because the reason they should be jumping to the top is that their keyword, the keyword 4ed has 3 characters, which matches the first 3 characters of their names, and then the key string. So one thing I don't know about is why I haven't just done this. And then before extension matches, does that actually get used? Node putter arrays. Yeah, so it should totally be flowing through the system correctly. Unless not has wildcard isn't working. That might need to be a 3 for this to work. So let's look at line 286 of oops. Um 4coder UI helper. line 286. Alright, so it now believes that I have a wildcard. Okay, that's what I figured. So, what's going wrong here is that I thought that this should be greater than 2, but it should actually be greater than 3, because if the number of absolutes is 3, that means it has a blank string, the whole thing, and then another blank string. And an absolute is, I mean, it's just the way I ended up making this work, is that you take the string that you're trying has wildcards in it, you splice it up into a bunch of substrings, and then you say we must find this substring before we find, like, we must match this substring, and then we must match this substring after. We must match this substring after. But these things can start in any, like, distance from each other. If you put a blank string in there, what that means is you're saying, if you put a blank string at the beginning, for instance, then that means you match it right away, and then any amount of distance can go until you hit the next thing, the first thing in the list. If there is no blank string there, then the first thing you hit, like the first thing in the string, has to be a match. Because it hasn't, like, the way it exactly works out is that controls whether or not I mean, it's set up that way on purpose so that you can control whether or not you need to match the beginning and at the end, but it also made the code line up easier the way I had written it a long time ago. Anyways, alright, since I don't have a lot of people here to chat with me yet, or if they are here to chat, they're quite busy doing other stuff, and so they're not chatting anyway, I'm going to put on I'll put on a little music. Alright, so that hopefully fixes our sorting problem. Okay, now for reasons I can't understand, forehead is at the top anyway. Which is different. I need something that's not at the top first. Let's just open all the code on this path. There we go. Okay, pretty productive day. We got one thing done already. 15 minutes in. Notepad-like mode, select scope right. That shouldn't be too hard to fix. Let's track down the scope stuff. Highlight. It's called highlight, not select. That seems lame. And there was, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's under helper. View no mark snap to cursor. App. I don't have the scope for this view, so view.viewID. Sneak in a little fix for the Mac bindings while I'm here. Alright, so to test this, I'm going to need to open up some code, put us in Notepad-like mode. Separate problem there. You can see that this is the problem with the highlights. The highlight has a higher priority than the text coloring, but the text coloring still wins because blocks, like block changes or single position changes, are encoded at as a separate type, and those get higher priority by default, which is a mistake. I want to be able to like have highlights say that they are higher priority than that text coloring, and so the highlight applies, not the text coloring. But first, okay, almost got it right. The only thing we need to change is when we do absorb down. When we do absorb down, we also want to do the no snapping, so that we can absorb down multiple times without having to reset our selection over and over again. Notepad-like. Doop 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 doop. Cool. Alright, now we're going to deal with the highlight priority versus the block priority problem. Okay, so the way this is happening right now is we decide visual marker colors, and then we decide highlight range marker color, and we can see when we actually go to set this, we go if the marker highlight if it is not already set, and we have something, then we set it. But that's not really right. It turns out that whether or not we've set it, we just want to check the priority and see if the priority of the highlight at the top of the stack beats the priority of the block that's there. Yeah, so now if our marker highlight best priority is better than the best priority we got from the blocks, then we use the range anyway. If there's a tie, we go with the block still, but that should at least be correct for most cases, or all cases in our case. As I said before, the priority thing isn't really fully there yet. We'll do a new type of priority system later. So you can see this is still getting colored red because we're in there, but that red one is getting replaced by the higher priority highlight now. Exactly what I needed. Okay, now I want to deal with this new file problem. This is kind of, this is just a, something decayed somewhere along the way of building everything up. Some system has decayed. I changed the order of some operations. I accidentally deleted a hook call. Something went wrong. So we want yeah, so for some reason this is not happening properly anymore. Interesting. So this hook never even gets called is the problem. So let's try and go back a little further. How does new work then? Maybe it's because of the change in the new file system that we're not getting the open default new file stuff anymore. So let me track down the name of that. Let me do this from 4coder though. We'll close this. Alright, we're going to track down the name of the thing. It's called... Interesting. It's called what? It's called, special hook. Special hook new file. Hook new file. And what do you know? It doesn't get called anywhere. So my guess is that we lost that in the switch over from the old new file system to the new one. So let's take a look-see-loo at that situational thing. Lister lists. There we go. We want to go to the new interactive new activate new open or new generic. Create buffer. So it's just an API call. I suppose that the most likely explanation for what's going wrong is that create new doesn't actually call the hook. It used to be that we used a low-level way to create the file and call the hook whenever the new file came through the UI, and so the API can't actually trigger it. That wasn't the way it was originally wired up, which is kind of dumb. So let's see if we can just call it from here. Not sure that's the right way to spell suppress. Two P's, one R. Who knew? Okay, so if the file exists and we are not supposed to suppress the new file hook, we will then if models new file hook new file does not equal 0, we're going to call that, and now we need to look up what that looks like. I see. So takes just a buffer ID. Okay, great. Okay. Right, now the only problem is that hook doesn't actually exist. So let's go back to types, buffer create. We have a new buffer create flag. Indicates that normally the new file hook is called on any created buffer. Passing this flag will prevent the new file hook from being run. New file hook is one of those things that's no longer necessary since all file creations originate from the custom side. It means that really what's happening here is that the core is just helping to coordinate the fact that one module if we're talking about what is it that the two modules who are cooperating don't need to tell each other directly, and that the core is handling the cooperation, the only thing that it's helping the two modules do to cooperate is keeping track of the hook now, so that one module can say, here's the new file hook, and another module can say, I create a file and run the new file hook without actually finding out what it is. 1 lives left. Has anyone done any 4coder customization for coding in Python? No, not that I know of. Most of the advanced stuff for indentation that's in the core that's not customizable doesn't really allow for that. You could turn off those features, and then you would be able to customize what's left over, which would be like the unhighlighted, without syntax highlighting, without like virtual white space, but with just text level indentation being automatic. You could get some of that stuff up and running, but it would also be a lot of work because 4coder isn't really set up to help you customize that kind of thing against the grain in this like alpha version. So my guess is no, there won't be a good one that I don't know about out there. Not anytime soon. Sorry about that. Alright, so let's see if my new files work again. Perfect. Alright, so what's the problem here? Well, more accurately, or more precisely put, what's the solution? I could go to the default hooks and look at the command caller, and I could say, hey command caller, right now when you snap, view the hook marker back to the cursor, you're doing it only in the active view. Could we do that in all views? I feel like it wouldn't be too expensive to do that in all views. What are we using that scope for? A couple of things. So we would still get that scope there, but we could do a loop for this part before we execute the command. And so we would do our loop in this if and in this if. Hit all the views, set all of them to snap, mark to cursor, and then, yeah. Okay, I like that. First, app access all. Then we're going to get the managed scope. And we're going to set that to true there. Then we're going to do the same loop again. right here. Get scope it. Manage variable get, view snap mark to cursor, val. If that does not equal 0, we use view it dot id to get the views. Wait, we already have the view summary now. We use view it, which is the up-to-date version of the view summary, and view it dot cursor position. Okay, there we go. Let's give this a try. So the repro on this is to build something and do some jumps, or just basically, yeah, do some jumps. Oops, one too many parentheses. Look at that. You see that? Green, red, and then uncolored. Uncolored means unmatched. Close, get rid of that parenthesis, and there we go. There's the first win from the parenthesis colorer. It just saved me about 10 seconds, possibly. Okay, so now what we want to do is put ourselves in Notepad-like mode. We're going to load the project. And we're going to build it. Okay, I don't know what any of that's about. Oh shit. Okay, what do we do? I feel like there's only one option. First we close this. We close this. We relaunch 4coder, the non-newest version, and one at a time we get rid of these things and close whatever file we find ourselves in when we do. So what's happened here is the new file hook runs on all buffers, which is not correct. I need to fix that. And then the change that was put on those buffers, the insertion of this comment everywhere, was saved when I used the F1 key to run a project command that has the save all buffers first flag set to true. So now all of my text files, everything that is automatically opened by 4coder just got that shit spammed on it. And that is definitely not a good behavior, and is also not the kind of thing I can easily recover from since I don't have a global level to-do system yet, or undo system yet. I couldn't have just done an undo because my undos are per buffer, so I still would have had to visit each one, and the whole time I was visiting each one I'd be running the version of 4coder that has this bug, which I don't want to run again until I fixed it, because man, I'm just so scared of something going weird. It's also the kind of thing that would be made easier by a macro potentially, although I don't know how exactly that would help. I guess it would help with the kill, save, open next part. I would still want to manually figure out where the thing is that I need to delete. But scary to think how easily, like, programs often you might get the idea that it's like we've put in a lot of work and we've like put in fail safes and things are stable. It takes just such a small mutation of the code to make it completely broken in very, very bad ways. And it's very hard to even imagine writing code that doesn't have that possibility, that potential to just some kind of change you didn't anticipate that creates a very time-consuming bug. Like in this case, this bug is always going to be there, lurking in the back of my mind as a possibility anytime I'm touching the create buffer stuff now, because I have to think, did I mess up how flags come through? Did I accidentally move the flag thing around in such a way that it no longer does the right thing? You know, there's all kinds of things that might go wrong. Jeez, the list is still fills the entire screen. Look at this. Ugh, it's still so many. Not sure why that had it twice, unless this file just had new files sitting there already. But, okay. We're almost there now. Oops, I just closed one. So I have a few that still have the new file, and I'll track those down by looking at git commit or git diffs later. I'm not sure why I chose to close it, except that I just wanted to reload everything. Oh, I found a new way to track these down. Perfect. Okay. So now um Bullmanter, can 4coder show line numbers? Not like a margin. It doesn't have like a margin line number. If you put the file bar on, it shows you what line number you're on, so you can at least like check what line number it is, like 133, but it doesn't have them on the margin yet. And there's not really a way to customize that in that's reasonable either. So, basically, no. But that's not because I don't want it there. It just hasn't been the thing to do yet. So we want to look at that new file thing. Okay, just because I'm creating a buffer doesn't mean I'm making a new buffer. So I want to check I needed a way to find out if this is a new file or not. Yeah, I usually default to having the file bar not enabled, and then I use Alt-B to toggle it, so if I need to check a line number, I can do that real quick. With customization power, there's a bunch of other things I could do, like have a key that just inserts the number, which is the line number, or have it post a string to the clipboard that's the line number or something, so I can paste that somewhere else. For me, I just need to be able to read it most of the time because I'm going to use it for jumping within 4coder, which you can't paste into. So, yeah. Like if I need to see a line number in 4coder, it probably means I'm going to jump to it in Visual Studio, and then later I'm going to want to come check it out in 4coder possibly. So it's just most useful to know the number. Alright, so what we want to try to do is figure out a way to check like buffer is for new file. Buffer is for a new file. So it's only buffer is only for a new file if we make an empty buffer and it has a canonical name. Or if we do this, and it has a canonical name. So if our file has a new canonical name and we cleared it to 0 because we're always making a new, then buffer is for a new file. Then finally, if we have a file and the buffer is for a new file and we're not suppressing the new file hook, then we call new file. Alright, now we're not going to load the project for 4coder because that's too dangerous. Instead, we're going to open one file at a time and make sure that that part isn't got a problem. Okay, so that didn't trigger it. Let's go to this project and load it, because if this one gets messed up, I'm less worried. Okay, now what I want to see is what if I'm in Notepad mode and I jump around. Now it doesn't highlight stuff in the jump buffer. So down here, since it's jumping the cursor and the mark, it doesn't create highlight ranges as it jumps around. So even though it's not active, the snap is working and the bug we were working on has been properly fixed. Okay. I guess the other thing we need to check still is make sure that new files actually do get the new file hook. Perfect. Alright. Yeah, so that's a pretty simple one. Let's go to default hooks. Render caller. Okay, that's straightforward enough. The other thing I want to check out is Notepad-like. If I click here, yeah, so that is annoying. Why exactly does that happen? I'm not sure. Obviously, it's just leaving the mark, well, wherever the cursor previously was. And it has truly left the mark there and the cursor there. So if I update stuff over, if I click off it though, it fixes right away. I don't understand that. Because clicking normally triggers it to move both. So why is it only triggered to move one of them in that case? Someone in the core is moving the cursor. Alright, we want to look at okay, that's real. That's real. Okay, good, good, good. Still not convinced we found all the cases of cursor moving. There we go, resizing. So this does all the panel resizing work, but what happens if I click on a view other than the main view? That's what I'm trying to find out. If mouse in edit area and mouse panel does not equal 0, input mouse press L. Does not equals new panel. So that's what I don't get. Why did it not move the mark that time? See? On the first click, it moves the cursor but never the mark. New panel ID, active panel. So here's where I change the active panel. It's right here. We're going to run a few experiments. Let's see. I think the easiest way to track this down would be to see if it goes through the command and for some reason the command messes it up. Mouse, click, set cursor, click, set cursor and mark. This is the one I think we want. Boom. Okay. So we come in here, we get the active view. The active view has buffer ID 14. I bet that's the scratch buffer though. Yeah, so it doesn't think I've clicked into the active view, so it dismisses me and says, can't do that. Then it does all this stuff to snap the marker around with cursors. And we're getting ready to check threads. We're not GPU threads. Get out of here. Threads. I see what's happening. Okay. Okay, so the basic problem is this. First we see if we can send the click to view, to the active view. We can't. Nothing happens. Then we see if we can change the active view. We can. Then the next frame, the user is still holding down the click button, but they're not pressing it anymore. And so the thing that lets you drag around is active, but not the thing that sets the mark with the cursor on the initial click. So if we want this to work, it would need to understand the idea of activating the view and sending the input through to it all at once, which is obviously not the way it's been organized for some reason. I don't know exactly what that reason would be. I don't think I'll fix this right now. This sort of ordering stuff is too subtle. There's a good chance that it would introduce a bug in some obscure menu that I'm not thinking about right now. So I'm going to wait until after I've shipped to mess with this, so that I have some time to get it right. Alright, we're going to get back to this as soon as I take a short break, maybe 10 minutes. We will get to this last bug here if we can, and then do the docs. So see you guys in not too long.